So it becomes property of our enemies. Nasrallah talks about our stories, our Palestinian stories, our memory, our present, and our future. Within this reality, remembering, documenting, and publishing becomes the most important duty. So this genocide is not only on memory, it is also on the present time and the future, and also the gatekeepers of the Palestinian account and narrative, they do their best for this narrative to continue. So, how can we look at that? This does not impact the public opinion only, but also impacts political decisions when it comes to war and laws. And this is the duty of the Zionist movement. But the situation has changed after the aggression on Gaza, after the 7th of October. In this session, we're going to have a number of influencers who are going to talk about their role and duty in between the two accounts, the Palestinian and the Israeli accounts. We have Ahmed Hijazi, Bilal Khalid, Muhammad Al Kandari from Kuwait, and human rights activist, and Nicole Jeans, a content creator from Romania, and Karim via Zoom. He is a rap singer and also a human rights activist. I would like to start with you, Ahmed. Yesterday, I asked Ahmed to describe to me how I should present him. He told me, I told him I'm going to call you a shahid, a witness, and also a person that survived the war in Gaza. But he disagreed with me. So persons perhaps think when a person comes out of Gaza that that person has been rescued and that person survived from what is happening in Gaza. How can I survive if I'm carrying all this burden in my heart? How can I be a survivor if I was not able to say goodbye to my martyr brother? I did not have the opportunity to say goodbye to him. How can I be a survivor when my brother was abducted? My brother was abducted, his wife and his small children were watching him. How can I be a survivor if my friends, my family are subjected to genocide each and every day? How can I be a survivor if 2 million Gazans have no shelter, no food, no water? How can I be a survivor if the world does not know what it means to be in a refugee camp? They don't know what it means to be a refugee scores of times when they do not know the temperatures inside those camps. No one of us is a survivor of this genocide. He worked as a content creator, as an influencer in Gaza before the genocide, as you prefer to describe it. You used to create content and also you worked on exposing and revealing manifestations of happiness. I know that life was not rosy before the genocide, but your content has changed after the genocide started. Gaza has been under siege for 18 years, and despite the aggression, despite the siege, despite all the suffering that Gazans subdue, but life was not, yes, rosy, this is true, and we survive and live for Palestine to live. This is the kind of content that I try to underline. I always try to show the hopeful face of Gazans, irrespective of the suffering, the real beauty of Gaza, the culture of Gazans. and to say that Gaza, that has people who are educated, cultured, irrespective of the suffering, to show despite the suffering, despite the problems, education is very important. I wanted to talk about the streets of Gaza, the neighborhoods of Gaza, the fish of Gaza. It is one of the tastiest kind of fish you can have worldwide. I wanted to show that Gazans, they love life similar to all people around the world, but they have been pushed into this situation, the siege. Despite all that, these people want to live, they want to have a happy life. So I always describe Gaza and compare it to a phoenix that rises from ashes, from the rubble. They want to live. They want to tell the world as a whole, we live life and life loves us. We love life and life loves us. In this genocide, I always try to shine light on the real story of Gaza, the beautiful story of Gaza. But in this genocide, I started documenting what is happening to show people, to show the world how much people in Gaza love life, how they resist the difficulties, how they resist the catastrophes around them, how they are subjected to genocide. May the peace of God be on the people of Gaza. May the peace of God be on the resolute Gaza, on steadfast Gazans, on the abducted, but the martyrs are with God Almighty. They are blessed with God Almighty. Thank you, Ahmed. I would like to move to Bilal. Bilal is not only a camera operator, a photographer, he is also a painter, and he carries so many stories about Gaza. And in one of the stories that have spread, where you wrote on one of the tents, we have been forced to leave it. We're going to carry Gaza in our hearts. You took Gaza in your heart. You carried Gaza in your heart outside Palestine. You covered the war. You lived the war. Talk to us about that experience. First of all, to enter the field of journalism or photojournalism to cover hotspots, conflict zones. This is a risky endeavor and job. And the biggest challenge is also when you cover a genocide, when you cover a war that affects your people, your friends. In the morning of the 7th of October, I was in Doha. And similar to the people who heard the story, I opened my TV. I started following the news. I knew that a war is going to be waged by the occupation forces on Gaza. I did not hesitate. At 6 p.m., I was in the airport heading to Gaza, and I entered on the 8th of October to Gaza before the closure of the crossing. Palestinians in general, Palestinian journalists in particular, also are the ones who rush to the place where they were born. The most important thing for them is to go back to Gaza, irrespective of the place where they live. We have so many examples of people who have left everything behind them and came to Gaza to stand up for their people, to stand with their people. And here I'm talking about journalists, doctors, medical doctors, scholars in different specializations. I have made coverage of many, many hotspots from different parts of the world. I covered civil wars, regional wars, but I have never seen something similar to what is happening in Gaza. We know that Gaza has been a hotspot for many, many years. The people of Gaza themselves, when you ask them, they will tell you we have never seen a war such as this one. You feel that the previous wars I covered were like training for the big war. And you find that the Palestinian people and the Gazans in particular, because of the so many circumstances and the so much violence they have been exposed to, you find that they are so resolute, so patient, so much able to rise beyond the suffering, the wounds, and to accept life irrespective of the surrounding circumstances, irrespective of the genocide. You find yourself when you go to Gaza, and particularly during the coverage of the genocide, I found that it is very difficult for a photojournalist to cover a story of suffering of his own people, as it happened to Mu'min Sharafa, to report the story of his own family being martyred, to leave his job and go to bury his family or to look for them under the rubble, as our father Walid al-Dahruh has done. The Palestinian journalist is an exceptional journalist. You will not find a person that can strike a balance between professional work, coverage. This is a great profession. This is a majestic job, a great job. The journalist is the first soldier in this battle. At the same time, that journalist stays with his family, communicates with members of his family. He tries to strike a balance between his care for his profession and the care for his family. This is unbearable. Palestinian journalists are so resolute, so strong, so patient. Even the duties of the Palestinian journalists in Gaza have changed also. We're going to come back to talk about photojournalists and the difference between photojournalists and other journalists in different parts of Palestine. Dr. Mohammed Al-Kandari, I would like to come to you. So the kind of audience that follows you, you have more than 1 million followers on Instagram, tens of thousands of other followers on other platforms. If you can give us an idea about the age group of followers that follow you, how do they interact with the content that you create? Do they support you? Do they criticize you? First of all, in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, I see sadness, but do not be concerned, do not be sad, as Gazans say. Before answering your question, I was in the middle of the rubble in Khan Yunis. I raised my head to see a scene that I never thought I would see, only in the day of judgment. And the Gazan next to me told me, so you are amidst a place where there is a fire belt that fell on it. And he said, everything will come back to what it used to be. So I always thought that all what we have seen, irrespective of the suffering and the catastrophes, everything is going to go back to how it used to be in the past. The steadfastness, the resoluteness that we know about Gazans. When they asked me to describe Gazans, I told them these are people that are different from any other human beings. The traits and attributes are different. No person can stand on his feet or her feet to report the death of members of his family. 20 people have been obliterated, wiped out. For a person, a journalist, a Palestinian, to recount or to report the story of the death of 20 people, this is exceptional. So they enjoy refined morals and ethics. in situations such as these ones, you will find people harming others for them to survive. But when you see people sharing their food with others, this is unprecedented. I have never attended or seen any wars. I've seen earthquakes, famines, and refugee camps. I've never entered a place as bad as this one. Nobody would ask you for money. Nobody would ask you for food. Nobody would ask you for anything. People would walk for 2 to 3 hours to give you gifts. I do not think that I would be able to see anything similar to that. In response to your question, the story very briefly is as follows. After the 7th of October, during the beginning of the crisis, a number of famous people, influencers, kept silent. So normally everybody speaks, and I say the whole Arab world is going to speak about it. But after the first couple of days, and we saw the number of bots on Twitter and social media attacking Gaza and Palestine, ignoring all the 70 years that have elapsed and blaming the Gazans, then I felt the responsibility and I felt that I had to speak. If I speak about the persons on Instagram, my followers, all of them adore Palestine. But every now and then you'll have bots here and there, people who would like to distort your personality or your reputation. And this did not happen only to me, it happens to so many influencers who supported Gaza. It is normal to see people who are going to betray you, people who want to see an end to this cause, and there are people who would gloat to see genocide in Gaza. But God is my witness. I have to tell you that only a few people have said so. I am sure that in each community, in each society, there are sick people. We do not claim that people are angels and good people. In each and every community, we have evil persons. We have persons who do not want good things to happen to Palestinians for political reasons or for any other reasons. But these constitute a minority. I have to say that when I meet people from Kuwait or from other countries, they tell me, thank you for what you're doing, although I do not think I'm doing much, but we hope that we work with you. Thank God Almighty. So, on social media, the situation is very positive. Social media has changed the balance of events on the ground. Had this war happened 10 years or 15 years ago, we wouldn't have seen the results that we see today. With the presence of social media, each person in Gaza had a scoop to make. Each person in Gaza with a mobile phone is a journalist. The reporting of incidents and events was amazing. Even the different platforms were not able to block this deluge of stories that were broadcast. So the situation in media has changed thanks to social media. So the decision makers in social media, they saw the weight of social media. That is why there has been talks between the owners of those platforms and the occupation and put pressure on them in order to restrict those platforms. Nicole, you're a Romanian influencer. The content that you published on social media before was different from what you present now. I am sure many people would ask you, why do you speak about Palestine? What do you what relationship do you have with Palestine?
Enough. It's not about the color of the skin, the religion. It's this frenzy when people are telling me I should not believe my eyes because somehow I do not recognize the color of the blood. And they are telling me I should study and be a politician or be a journalist or I have to know so many informations and have a career when everything comes to the atrocities and the genocide we're seeing. And it's impossible for me to even receive that question sometimes, because is a why the world is not burning at the sight of seeing what is happening in Gaza. That should be the question. The question should be why the entire world, and I'm not talking about the public because the public is very receptive and it's waking up, but I'm talking about the people who should, they're supposed to represent us and they're supposed to protect us. And I had this idea of, the good guys and the bad guys. And then I realized that each of us, we should take the digital weapons and try to wake up 3 feelings in the public. The first one is rage. If you feel rage, that means you're a human. And later the rage should turn into passion. And after that, it turns into duty. And that makes you a human being. It's not why I support Palestine, because just because I'm a person from the West, because the Zionists like to use this narrative that I should be an Arab or a Muslim to support it. And I don't need any tag to see what is happening. I don't need any tag to raise my voice and try to wake up the world. And the question for me, it should be why the world doesn't burn, metaphorically speaking, let's say, at the sight of what we're seeing in Gaza.
شكرا نيكول عروس.
Thank you, Nicole.
وكان من المفترض أن تكون في حفل توديع عزوبيتها حاليا، ولكنها اختارت أن
Should
تكون
have
معنا
been
اليوم
in
لتتحدث عن
a
فلسطين.
party, her wedding party, but she chose to be with us. Thank you, Nicole. We have Karim Amin low-key through the internet. Karim, known as Loki, is an British activist of Iraqi origin. He is a rapper, and his song about Palestine was removed, and he was attacked because of his support. And now he lives in a country which is one of the most supportive of Israel, but he is an activist. What is the main achievements of Palestine Action after the genocide, and how has this impacted the Israeli narrative? Thank you for your kind invitation, and my thanks to Al Jazeera and the heroes of Al Jazeera who taught us how to be professional, how to fulfill the likes of Walid Dahdouh and Anas al-Sharif. Now in Gaza there are people who manifest what the martyr Shireen Abu Aqla said. The coverage continues. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your service to humanity. You are the source of inspiration to all the free people in this world. In this vicious war on Gaza, people look at Al Jazeera as a resort where they can find the truth faced with a sea of misguiding and misinformation and fake news. So I'm honored to be with you. Israel now is going through, it's stuck in a quagmire in Gaza, and it's facing a war of attrition. The West has told us that Israel is invincible. We discovered the opposite, that Israel is a paper tiger, and we know that it's weak, it's vulnerable, and Gaza is only the tip of the iceberg. All our respect to Gaza, and I stand speechless, and I cannot find enough words to express my support for them. So far as Palestine Action, this is an exceptional organization. We are swimming against the trend. we are trying to close down Israeli weapons factories in this country. Until now, we've managed to totally close down 3 factories belonging to Albert Systems, and this is due to the huge effort in Palestine Action and our members. They are not just English Arabs, they belong to other nationalities. Until now, as I said, Palestine Action, we work 24 hours a day to support our people in Gaza, and ultimately we consider ourselves as together. We work hand in hand, and all our appreciation of hosting me today. Thank you, Karim. I go back to Ahmed once again. Ahmed, this war on Gaza, in this war, Israel, unlike previous wars, banned journalists, foreign journalists, from entering into the Gaza Strip, and this has made the responsibility shouldered by Palestinian journalists even bigger. You talked about this responsibility. What has changed? Why, in your opinion, this has happened? We always say that Israel adopts a policy of denial, whether we're talking about a Palestinian journalist or a foreign journalist. I'll give you an example. At the beginning of the Khan Yunis military operation, I was in the Al-Mawasi area, and the Israeli army's vehicles began their incursion into the area. I saw a man raising his hands up with a white flag, and he was standing next to Al-Aqsa University, which was housing more than 70,000 internally displaced persons, with my colleague Muhammad Abu Safiya, who is a cameraman for ITV. We interviewed the man. He said, I want to go and get the rest of the people in my house, my family, and some other internally displaced people. After we finished the interview, the Israeli forces, his name is Ramzi Abu Sahlul, who is a civilian known by everybody, loved by his neighbors. He trades in clothes. 2 minutes after finishing the interview with him, the Israeli soldiers, who were about 300 meters away, they killed him with a sniper's bullet. Ramzi Abu Sahlul was killed on the spot. I kept my mobile phone in action during the interview, and when he was shot, and we wanted to hold him. He died, or he was killed immediately. We wanted to lift him up. We were fired at. I did not publish this material, but my colleague Muhammad with ITV published that. But Muhammad did not show the minute he was killed by a sniper. Immediately, Israel denied killing him. They said this is an area of military exchanges, and it was not us who killed him. And although there were 3 previous occasions when Israel killed people who were raising the white flag, in the fourth I sent to CNN. CNN got in touch with me, so the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Organization, we spent 2 days discussing. They wanted to find some sort of a gap in our story, and They even found that the kind of bullet is the same as what the Israeli soldiers use and brag about on the social media. So the investigation was published. As I said, Israel, Israel admitted killing this man, but it was not a deliberate thing. But they said he was killed accidentally by mistake. And of course, Palestinians were part of the victims in this genocide. We always hear the Israeli narrative only, we do not hear the Palestinian narrative. This was in the past, and now in this conflict, the Palestinian narrative, despite the difficulties, but even the Palestinian Journal Syndicate does not do enough to support that, but the citizens of Gaza, using their mobile phones, managed to present a counter narrative which was very powerful. And in the past, Israelis allowed journalists through the Erez crossing point, and they never hear the Palestinian narrative, and they come fully brainwashed. And according to Israeli narrative, they consider that every citizen in Gaza is a terrorist or a potential terrorist, and therefore, because of the size of solidarity with the Palestinian cause has reached this level which we've been hoping for. Lal, you talk about international organizations. How has Western media attitude changed? Have they changed their questions, the kind of content they ask for? We, of course, choose the picture or the image we tend to deliver. Maybe some agencies do not accept. We find others. It's true that the main agencies side with Israel, and I think they are run by Zionists, so therefore they try to curtail the Palestinian coverage, and ultimately a photojournalist should know how to create his content and send it to the world. And as you said, every person in Gaza has become a journalist, the citizen journalists, as they call them. And because of all the wars and conflicts and our ongoing struggle since 1948, any child you ask about politics, they will have an answer for you. They have a lot of information and familiarity with these issues. So therefore, the Palestinian journalists think that we have been successful in managing to deliver our message, but we were shocked that organizations and international court, criminal court, and us did not move. They did not act on these photos and pictures. I'll give a small example. Sometimes, as a photojournalist, you feel shocked. In one of the massacres which took place in Gaza City, I reached the area. There was a fire belt using not missiles fired by F-16s, but by barrel bombs. So 10-story buildings were leveled. to the ground, and we used to walk on corpses. We could not distinguish that because they're covered in rubble. We could hear people screaming. They were salvaging some children from the top of some certain buildings. You started thinking that this is like doomsday scenario. You see little children's hands appearing from underneath the rubble calling for help. At that moment, I felt paralyzed. I could not pick up my camera and take my photos, and I didn't know how I can frame this image or make a video clip out of it. So therefore, I had to leave my camera aside and help the people to salvage bodies from underneath the rubble, or try to help the survivors who are still buried under the rubble. I took off my bulletproof jacket, my helmet, so that I can move easily, because I hear the child screams. And under the rubble, I met this child, a little girl. When I shouted at her. I asked her, "Could you hear me?" She was shouting. She said, "Please, please get me out," because the fire was edging closer and closer to her, and all the concrete blocks was on her body. She could not move. And the body of her sister was lying right next to her. I saw that with my own eyes. I wanted to move the rubble but I couldn't, because I felt I could not move to my left or to my right. I tried to talk to her, to comfort her, until the civil defense people came to the rescue, and we continued our journey to Khan Yunis. This is something I cannot forget. It's like a nightmare which will always visit me when I'm sleeping. I do not know what the name of this girl was, or what did she look like. I started looking for her, checking through the lists of martyrs and injured people. About a week ago, we are talking about an incident which took place 6 months ago, but a week ago I concluded that her name is Lamar Deep and she was 14 years of age. They got her out alive, but she died in the ambulance. Through the social media, until I found her account. She was a beautiful girl, beyond description. I can never imagine how sad I was that I could not help to rescue her. I took some video images, the whole in changing the narrative. Now I go to Dr. Muhammad. Dr. Muhammad, I told you yesterday about one of my professors who told me that the best way of telling someone's story is to go and live with them. What happened to you when you went to Gaza and lived with their people?
When I went to Gaza, I realized how trivial our lives are. I realized how trivial our concerns and problems are. The situation in Gaza is very dire. You cannot imagine this situation. It is scary to hear the sound of missiles. What you watch on social media is no more than 5% of the reality on the ground. I still get astounded and fear the sound of cars, of horn of the car, and so on. We slept in Al Arish. Throughout the night, I was listening to the sound of waves, and that reminded me of the sound of F-16. F-16 missiles. So every time I hear the sound of an aircraft, I remember F-16. All forms of death exist in Gaza. People subdued all forms of death. We might feel sad for martyrs, but martyrs are in a better place. The catastrophe lies in the scenes that people have been subjected to. If you remember 4 days ago, the little girl who was carrying a bottle of milk and saying, "Our house was bombarded," and she was asked, "Where are you heading?" She said, "I do not know. We are going to run away." This is not the language of a child. The age of that girl is the same age of my daughter. When she was crying, the way she was crying is similar to the way my daughter cries. I was in a very difficult situation. Yes, towards our accommodation, and that was about 8 or 9 p.m. And it was pitch black, dark. It was very dark, like pitch black. And there is a sense of calm, very calm. And then all of a sudden, you hear the sound of F-16. It is very scary. We met a 6-year-old girl, 6 or 7 years old, with her little brother, who was, I think, 4 years old. We were shocked. We stopped. We were in the ambulance, and I asked her, she was barefooted. We asked her, "What are you doing here?" She said, "I'm looking for any help, financial help, or I'm looking for sustenance." And we asked her, "Where is your mother?" She told us she's at the end of the street here. And when we reached the end of the street, her mother was in a school. And when we when we took the children to that school, we realized that she had no food to feed her children. They had no food. She was distributing or taking her children and asking them to seek sustenance. This is the situation in Gaza. It is very dire, very difficult. People have no access to food. They don't have access to medication. They can't live. Whenever I sit with a person, I realize that they try to alleviate our suffering. When we talk to them, they tell us, "ما تقلقش." But they are suffering. Children have gone through unbearable experiences. If the world does not stand up for what is happening, they're going to face psychological problems. We've met a child who's lost her arm. Since then, she lost her arm. It was amputated. Since then, she couldn't utter a word. She hasn't talked since then. And now she can only utter a few words when she gets psychological help. She's shivering. Whenever she sees something, she starts shivering, shaking. Those who have died have gone to Allah, but those who are still in Gaza are suffering. The people of Gaza are exceptional, are different. People claim and say that the Gazans, the people in Palestine, have so. I have seen children, old children, fighting with each other. And my friend was with me, a friend from Gaza, and I told him, "Do they not have anything to do in the midst of the killing, of the bombardment? What can they fight over?" And the Gazan man was smiling, laughing. So they are fighting on the rubbles. Are these your borders or my rubbles? Are these your borders or my borders? About the demarcation between the two borders. They're talking about 40 centimeters. So then I realized the Palestinians cannot sell their lands nor sell their honor. There was a Palestinian that the only thing he owned is a pot of tea. I told him no. He invited me to have tea with him. I said, no, I do not need tea. He said, no, no, it's Abe, you have to come. It's not acceptable. You have to come and have tea with me. We've been invited to houses that had no walls, no ceiling. I used to smell the smell of death. And the person living there would tell me, you cannot leave before you have tea. They invite us to tea. In the midst of all this suffering, they still supplicate to God. They are still patient. But the world should intervene as soon as possible. So many of your followers are Arabs. And this Arab dynamism that we have seen, people have taken to the street in Amman and other cities. How important is it for the Arabs to understand and to adopt this narrative, the Palestinian narrative? In my humble presence on social media, I realized that the Western public can change the reality more than the Arab public can do. And this is sad. This is sad, but this is the reality. We cannot just ignore this reality. Western public is closer to the decision-making processes more than us. We have seen people in the different universities in the West, in the US, but we have to publish these narratives. I feel so sad when I hear that Palestinians have sold their lands. Let the Palestinians accept their reality. We, at least, part of our duty and the duty of many people in Kuwait is to try to correct this narrative, this story about the Palestinians, the image of the Palestinians. The situation in Palestine is different than anything else. The Palestinians have not stolen or robbed any person. Their grandfathers and fathers are martyrs, and they live on the very little available. And even when they demand their rights, you want them to stay silent. We have two examples, Bilal and Ahmed. Bilal went to Gaza on the 8th of October, and Ahmed wants to go back to Gaza. I do not exaggerate. In my first journey to Gaza, before leaving Gaza, Omar Lithwini, he is sitting here next to you. Can you salute him? A round of applause for him, please. When I used to film Omar, I used to say, who is similar to Omar? The different journeys, the different visits that you have made, his phone is always busy. You asked me to go to Gaza and I went with you. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you very much. Thank you, Omar, for the initiative. I'm going to move now to Nicole. Nicole, what are the sources of your pieces of information? Where do you get your information from? Where do you get your ideas, the ideas that you realize in the different videos and the content that you create? How do you verify your stories?
And a half an hour back. And we are like the different brigades. We have the researchers, we have the journalists, we have the people who tell us the story. And after that, we have a public that need an information to be chewed and presented in different ways in order for them to understand. So I always like to believe that we are like those kind of brigades of resistant fighters in the digital world. And I'm trying to get all my information, the best I can, from wonderful people that are telling amazing stories. I'm trying to learn. And after that, I know, especially in Western world, I have a public that it's a very sensitive public, and maybe it will be controversial what I'm going to say, but my intention most of the times is to offend that kind of public, because the moment I offend them, we know that we live in a society that everybody is offensive. The moment I offend them, they feel the need to come at me and contradict me because they are extremely brainwashed. And I'm talking about, as a European, I know what I'm talking about is like infuriating. The moment they feel that need to come at me and contradict me, in the process they need to study something, and maybe in the process they are going to understand something, and maybe I'm gonna get one of those three feelings, at least the rage, because if I make them feel the rage, for sure later it will turn in some kind of passion and duty that I was speaking before. And we are hearing a lot of speeches from all those Western politicians that, as I said before, they are supposed to represent us. And I said it all the time. I don't care how many books a person wrote. I don't care how many prizes or how many careers. If I'm sitting with that person, and I wish I could be a superhero and have superpowers and solve all the problems of the world, but I'm not, and I'm not a politician to do it. But when I hear those big voices representing the people, and they're saying, yes, kids are dying, people are dying, those are the numbers, but when I hear the word but, is where the humanity ended for me. And I don't care who stands in front of me, what kind of prizes and diplomas and whoever that person is, and we're fighting with this kind of evil people. And as a European, I have to say that I was educated and brainwashed at some point in my childhood to be afraid to speak, to be afraid to question absolutely anything. And right now we're seeing how they're weaponizing, for example, the Holocaust and pointing fingers and silencing people. And right now, I'm not afraid anymore to say exactly what I think, because I don't need to have any kind of political career to understand the color of the blood. So no matter what, no matter how they are convincing us and what kind of words they are using, it's impossible for us not to see, because we are not hearing about it. We are seeing how the Palestinians, they don't even have the time to mourn their death, because they have to film it and show it to the entire world. And if I don't feel the responsibility to give this information and try to show it to the people, it's not like I'm trying to sell them an idea. I'm showing them how people are dying and how they are being butchered and there's a genocide happening. And sometimes I ask God why He allows this. But then I realize that God can ask me the same question, because God gave us the means to know better than inflict pain on each other. God gave us the means to feed the entire world and gave us the means to know how to behave with each other and not inflict so much pain. And that's the answer for me, because I reached to a point to question my fate. And after that I understood that God gave me all the means to fight back. And in that moment, it's where I understood that each person present here in this room and in the world, each one we have that kind of humanity that we need to wear and to say welcome to the resistance, no matter how you resist. If you resist by words, if you resist by any means necessary. And another thing that I want to talk about, sometimes I feel is sad, just because I'm a Westerner, people are asking my opinion like it should matter. You know how the Western world likes to spread their idea of customized democracy, if it's possible with F-15 jets, or whatever they are doing, but it's very, very sad when I see they are calling us heroes when actually I'm a privileged person. The blood never touched me. I'm just seeing it, and I'm trying to wake up every fiber of my being and have that humanity and empathy. And it's so enraging when everything comes to just long talks from politicians and long but. That word, but. People are dying, but. And it should not be like this. That but should not exist. It's not like we are not seeing every day how people are butchered, and I really want to condemn people that are silent, especially people with very big platforms. And I know we have this movement of blocking the people and shifting a little bit who are we admiring in this world, because we are living right now a test of humanity. And as I said before, we cannot ask God why He's allowing this when God gave us all the means necessary to do something. Each one here and each one in the world, it's a warrior in his own or her own way, and each one can put that grain of whatever you can put to help this cause, because the Palestinian cause is not only the Palestinian cause. We realize that we don't have the freedom of speech that we thought we have. We don't have the democracy that we thought we have. It was just a concept of tell me what you cannot speak about, and I'm going to tell you who rules over you. And that was really sad and concerning. And in the Western world, when I have to chew the information in a satirical way or in comedy or in any way possible, the intention is wake the people up, because it's not only about what is happening, and it's been happening for 75 years. It's realize that you actually never had the freedom of speech, because you were just put it in a box and you can speak only about the things that they want you to speak. So this is actually the intention.
شكرا نيكول. مصادر المعلومات الآن متاحة، والمعلومات متاحة مش بس على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي، أيضا على وسائل
on the social media and the mainstream media like Al Jazeera, and all of this is contributing to the Israeli narrative. I go to Karim. Karim, you live in a country in Britain, and Nicole talked about the difficulty in convincing people who are brought up on a certain narrative to accept a new narrative. What tools do you have at your disposal to spread information and your sources? I do not want to exaggerate the importance of the social media and the influence reality, but social media plays a very active role in raising awareness, and also all the tweets and other means are important too. Through the platforms we can humanize those who are being dehumanized. Of course, when it comes to content supporting Palestine, there is some sort of platforms like Instagram. It's part of Meta. They use certain logarithms to black out on pro-Palestinian content. There's another company which is the WhatsApp, part of Meta too, and it became apparent that a 200 unit in the Israeli army uses artificial intelligence to expand the targeting of Gazan people and identify Gazan people through their relatives who are on WhatsApp. So the question is, and we must pose some serious questions. Jan Koum, and he documented AIPAC and Mark Zuckerberg, the owner of this, He is responsible for the kind of the Zaka was the organization responsible for spreading the lie about 40 Israeli children which were beheaded, and if there were any information, I think if there is any collusion, Twitter I use, and we know Elon Musk and Twitter is a different thing. Musk borrowed the amount of $1 billion from Larry Ellison to buy Twitter in the beginning. And Ellison is one of the biggest sponsors of the Israeli army and a close friend of Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister.
Elon Musk works with Authentics X that used to be that had previous or former officials in the Israeli intelligence. We know that Musk recently owned the SpaceX, this company that has launched a number of satellites in order to work for the intelligence, the ImageSat International, and this company plays a very important role in the targeting and the bombardment of Syria. So this virtual world is a double-edged sword. So there are pros and there are cons as well. And because there is a popular impetus that is taking place now, we have to take this opportunity for us to be able to confront the dangers of Zionism as much as possible. Thank you very much, Karim. So it takes really a long time for us to be able to cover a little about social media. Sada Social is an institution that documents the violations that are committed. There have been in excess of 5,000 intervention from Al Jazeera. So we have an intervention by Ahmed and from Sanad. Thank you very much, Muhammad Al-Qadi from Al Jazeera Mubashir. We have received so many questions from Al Jazeera Mubashir Public and from Al Jazeera Center for Studies platform. We have three main questions. The first question, why some decision makers avoid talking about the genocide acts that are being carried out in Gaza. The second question, how possible is it for the different content creators concert their efforts to continue with the content that would be continuous, that reflect the reality on the ground in Gaza? And what are the most important harassments that those influencers are subjected to? So we're going to take all the questions, and after that, we're going to get back to you. So the first thing that I would like to talk about, I used to live in Canada before I went to Gaza. In September, I went to Gaza to present my master's thesis, and after that, I wanted to look for opportunities outside Gaza. I have a Canadian passport, and at the beginning of the genocide that was inflicted on Gaza. So every few years or few months, we have escalations taking place in Gaza. It seems that the Gazans are used to that. Perhaps this was a training for the Gazans for what's to come, but nobody thought that such a genocide would take place. So at the beginning and straight after the 7th of October, I found myself going to the Shifa hospital as a volunteer. We face so many issues, so many problems. We, as medical doctors, we cannot talk about exactly what is happening because we are very busy with the wounded and with the people in hospital. Had an outpatient clinic, and that outpatient clinic was full of refugees. All corridors, all rooms, all beds were full. So each bed should have one patient, but all hospitals had two to three sick people, two to three patients, and this led to the propagation of the diseases amongst the patients. And because in hospitals or outpatient clinics, and despite all that, you have your page on Instagram where you had an English language content for the people around you in Canada. Yes, because I speak excellent English, my friends used to ask me, what is happening? There is no content in English. We need to know what is happening in English. Many people here do not know Ahmed because I used to target for does not reflect not even 1% of the suffering that Gazans undergo. Gazans, Palestinians, wherever they go, they do not like to go anywhere. They are comfortable in their own country. So, yes, you are free in your country, and your country is the place which is under so that Gazans have been very patient, but when you're in Gaza, when you know what is happening, this is different altogether from others. And this will change the discourse because you know the people you're talking to. Yes, I used to receive messages from my friends. I never thought that a person from our community, from our neighborhood, that would have undergone such experiences. I remember a person who is in Gaza, and he's not similar to any other person. When you go to Gaza and try to recount, and I did my master's, and God Almighty has chosen us to be in that particular place at that particular time. I visited many, many countries, and we're very, very proud that you are amongst us here today and that you're able to share with us this experience. Thank you very much, Ahmed. And we'd like to move now to you all and to all the influencers present with us, whether in this hall or any other place around the world, because we all agree. But we in this war, the war in Gaza, to what extent Gaza, outside Gaza and Palestine with different languages, maybe they should have a framework whereby they can exchange ideas, images, pictures, and so on and so forth, and to stop the restrictions imposed on social media. So perhaps we can start with a group via Telegram, and perhaps a group, we call it perhaps the Beehive. That would be an alternative to bots that we have all around social media. So let's call it a Beehive. So we have an intervention by Sanad agency that verifies stories and news. So Sanad agency, which is part of Al Jazeera network with our colleague Mohammed Azzanin. Sanad agency was one of the early agencies that have disclosed, that have exposed the falsification that has been carried out by the occupation. May the peace of God be upon you all. As you know, this war was the war of narratives and accounts, a war to attempt to evade the fact that they have been perpetrators of many, many criminal acts. And on this occasion, I would like to salute my colleagues, the journalists in Gaza, and I would like to particularly thank my colleagues from Al Jazeera Network who continue with their coverage for the 8th month in a row. In this exceptional coverage, we have faced many falsifications and distortions by the Israelis with regard to what is happening in Gaza. These lies and falsifications are part of the lie machinery adopted by many media outlets in Israel and in the West in order to black out the crimes that are committed. I would like to talk about the bombardment that took place in the Ashifa hospital, and there have been many accounts saying that the Shifa hospital was targeted by a Palestinian missile, beginning of a series of other accounts and other investigations. For us to be brief, Mohammed, all these materials are available for all of us. Yes, we in Sanad were specialized in verification of stories and investigations that are published and broadcast in Al Jazeera in different languages. In addition to Al Ma'madani Hospital investigation, we had also investigations about the targeting of Palestinians in the different humanitarian corridors, and we encourage influencers to have a look at Sanad because this is verified content. Perhaps it would be useful to the influencers. We take another question from Muna. Thank you very much. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Dr. Isam Abdi Shafi, researcher, my salutations to all of you. Muhammad, you made us cry. May God bless you. All speakers have great spirits, positive spirits. We can build a great deal on that. As a researcher, I've always been concerned by so much of the content on social media, but this content is amazing because it is a documentation of what is happening. It is very valuable. You're facing 4 wars. So the first war is having access to the truth and also the ability to publish it in light of the restrictions. And also we have the bots that are supported by millions and if not billions of dollars, and also you have how to be able to persist in light of all the other trivial content available on social media. So the question, so how mental restrictions that we face on the different networks. So this network, it is our duty to talk about it in light of what we are facing, in light of all the restrictions that we are facing. And the most important thing when it comes to this idea, how can we face any restrictions because we want these platforms to be sources for our people and nations. Thank you very much. May the peace and blessings of God. I'm a Palestinian activist. I would like to very quickly intervene and talk to you. So, Kandari, all my respects to you. I was very keen to talk to you. So, my intervention is not a criticism to the role of Kuwait and the fact that we have had a number of Kuwaitis that were with the delegation. So, we would like to talk about many influencers played a reverse role when it comes to Gaza. At some point, we felt that Gaza has become a genocidal museum. Some used to come and take souvenirs of the genocide. Was Gaza at that period of time, with all the influencers and cameras inside Gaza, did they need another influencer to come from the outside? Was the image not clear enough or missing parts of it? So I wanted to ask a question. I'm not criticizing influencers who play the role in many activities. The second point that I would like to talk about is to our youth from Gaza, Hijazi and Bilal. There is a question that we oftentimes pose as influencers and as journalists. So sometimes we ask ourselves who is going to hear us, who is going to see us, if after all this bloodshed, who is going to listen to us? So if all these images were not able to make people take real positions, we can talk about the impact of media and in the long term, in the short term, but also there is a moral or an ethical dimension with all this bloodshed. So death as images has prevailed. And to what extent can we impact people, influence them for them to move and to react? Thank you very much. I'm going to start with the question by Muna, Dr. Muhammad. The people of Gaza are very smart, more than you can imagine. They understand very well the difference between the people. So when we were in Gaza, they used to tell us, we know the difference between you and between this person and that person. They know really the difference. The people of Gaza, the people that we used to see, they did not want food. They did not want to have aid. They used to say, you have left your people, you have left your comfortable life, and you've come to this life. You have supported us a great deal. And when we left Gaza, we were crying, they were crying. There's something that we cannot understand. But please, can you raise your hand if you've gone to Gaza? It's a very small number compared to the number of people present here. There is a lot of respect, a lot of honor in Gaza. We entered Gaza laughing, smiling, happy to go to Gaza. We heard the sound of bombardment when going to Gaza, and we were crying while leaving Gaza. And this can only happen in Gaza. That is why they knew the difference between the presence of influencers who want to create content from Gaza to polish their image and those who have come to support them. They know the difference. So the presence of an influencer is not necessarily to deliver a certain image. The images that we have are enough, but I'm talking about our own experience. To have 17 people, influencers, medical doctors, within this bombardment for a week, you cannot imagine the level of awareness and consciousness in Kuwait. Yes, and this impacted the kind of content that you were able to publish. During that period of time, Kuwait was bubbling with so many comments. They said, you have represented us. You've carried out a kind of a collective duty. You moved and acted on our behalf. We hope that we'll be able to go many times. I'm going to give 1 minute to each one of you. So the same questions, time and again, exchange of ideas, pieces of information to put pressure on social media. There was an experience at the beginning of October. I do remember Omar was part of a number of influencers. They tried to unify the ranks and the voice of the different influencers. So let's start with you, Ahmed. Very quickly, I would like to talk about comfort. Since I left Gaza, I do not remember that I was able to sleep enough, comfortable enough. But in one of the nights in Gaza, when the Shifa hospital was violently targeted, I was documenting the voices or the sounds of the clashes. And there was a targeting where 2 people have been wounded, and there have been a number of people that have been wounded in the vicinity of Shifa hospital. So I slept, but since I left Gaza till date, I'm just trying to sleep. I just want to sleep. Today at 6 a.m. I was able to sleep. I woke up at 9. So slept at 6 and woke up at 9. So there are many challenges, particularly in this genocide, because anytime you can have martyrs from your family, but the other challenges are social media. During or the beginning of the aggression, when Biden delivered a statement and he said that there are more than 40 to 60 children that have been beheaded, and he said these are Israeli children, but he took pictures of children from Gaza after 3 days of the genocide. I documented many children who have been beheaded, and I put them on Instagram, and there they mentioned the Joe Biden account, and after 8 hours after this, these stories have been published, the platform removed those stories and pictures. I was in a tent near Ashifa, and there have been so many ambulances with. I told them, what is there? And they put me in the ambulance and they took me to a shelter house in a Shati camp in the northern part. When we reached there, there was use of heavy artillery and white phosphor, all of them targeting that shelter house. And because of the bombardment, I stayed with the people over there and I documented the fall of white phosphor on that shelter house. There have been so many martyrs and many people were wounded. I was able to get internet service and I was able to publish those pictures on Instagram. A few hours later, Instagram, they said that these are falsified information. All these videos and other similar videos are labeled as being false. Bilal, can you talk about your own? Let me answer Muna's question. Why photographers and influencers, is it their duty to continue publishing or should they stop? The pictures of the massacres, of the wounds, of the dead, as long as the war continues, the coverage should continue even after the war. We have to continue with our coverage because we do not document because we want to feel the pity or get the pity of the public opinion. Yes, we want some dynamism. We want to have an end, to see the end of this genocide. We document this because this should be an archive for the genocide that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people. Each massacre has martyrs. Each martyr is a person that has parents and relatives. That martyr is not just a number. So this is the duty of each content creator. Many content creators have interacted a great deal with the Palestinian cause at the beginning of this genocide, but afterwards they have moved from covering these kind of materials to other things, and some others stopped talking about Palestine because they feared that they would lose their followers because this is their source of income. Unfortunately, we as Palestinians and each free person that has a sense of belonging to humanity, to Islam, to Arabism, should continue his efforts. Gaza is not a trend. Gaza is not a museum for people to come and visit and increase the level of interaction. That is why we have to document our stories. We have to continue with the efforts made, and we have to say that this is a crime that has been committed, and we should try to find solutions to. Nicole, how the difficulties that you have faced, and do you think about unifying content with other Arab influencers? I see that you have a good relationship with many influencers. Very briefly, please.
Any other person who wants to create awareness and needs a platform, my platform is there. And I really want to say one thing. Sometimes, as I hate to call myself an influencer, as a person who wants to create awareness, between doing a script that I want to present it in a different way, maybe with satire or any other way possible, doing the script and filming and doing the entire process, anyone who has like good information and wants to send me like, Nicole, happened this, I'm willing to do all the videos, because I'm gonna say it again, my target of public, it's not necessarily the people that we are here and we know what is happening. My target of public, it's that blind public that needs to wake up. And that's why I'm using like different forms to create the content, even if I appreciate very much the support and it's important. But I think it's also because I know many creators that face the same problem between creating the script and doing whatever they need to do. We need this, as I said before, like the brigade of the researchers will give us the information and tell us, look, this is a vetted information. And after that, we start doing the scripts, because sometimes I'm getting lost a little bit and I forget when I have to focus precisely on something that's more important, because as we all know, social media, it's like a pool full of a lot of content. And whoever wants to collaborate, and I heard somebody before saying that has a lot of information that it's precise. I would love to read it and to start from there.
شكرا جزيلا نيكول. كريم، لو يحدثنا كريم عن المضايقات اللي تعرض لها ونوعيتها مختلفة، مش بس على السوشيال ميديا، وأيضا بالشارع فعليا تعرضت لمضايقات. عملك أيضا تمت إعاقته. بما أنه في سؤال عن المضايقات، بدقيقة لو سمحت حدثنا عن هاي المضايقات.
صراحة التحدي، وأشكركم على جهودكم الجبارة، ونتعلم من الكرامة والشهامة والنخوة، وشكرا لكم.
Resoluteness. May God grant Gaza victory. May God make you victorious and take his revenge from all unjust people. Thank you very much, Karim. In addition to the question, all content seems to be unified, but the formats are different. I would like to thank you very much for being with us in this session. I would like to thank the different panelists. Would like to invite Dr. Mohammed Mukhtar Al Khalil, the director of Al Jazeera Center for Studies, to deliver his concluding remarks. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. If you allow me, I would like to comment on this session. I would like to tell the influencer is a historian that covers the different details. So the role of the influencer is much bigger than we think. At the end of this forum, I would like to thank everybody. I would like to thank those who have established this platform, those who have translated, and those who carried out different duties, sound, filming, and also our colleagues from the different platforms who have been keen to publish, to broadcast this forum to the world at large, and to you, the panelists, the participants. Thank you for leaving your duties, your work, your families, even when you're on holiday. We'd like to thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for keenness to enrich this platform and to reach display and to take part in this battle. We'd like to thank the people of Gaza who gave us the honor to talk about that. Would like to thank the people of the flood, the Aqsa flood, to give us the strength to move to this world into this very, very strong moment and difficult moment. We'd like to reiterate our thanks to everybody, Al Jazeera management. Would like to thank them for supporting, propping up this forum. Dr. Mustafa and Sheikh Hamad, would like to thank them for keeping up this forum, launching it, starting it on time. Our colleagues from Al Jazeera Center for Studies, they did their best. They worked hard. We did our best to choose, meticulously choose the participants. I think we were successful, very successful in this edition in our choice of the different panelists who took part in this edition. We have been successful in choosing the different participants. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank God Almighty for all the efforts. Thanks ever much for the volunteers who contributed to the presentation and the hosting. We'd like to thank also the bloggers, the influencers that we do not know, but God Almighty knows them. He is going to grant them and bless them abundantly. We promise you that the coming edition of the forum is going to be similar or even better than this edition, because it is going to be the edition that is going to talk about victory in Gaza. I would like to thank you very much, and I would like to reiterate my thanks once again. I do not want to be lengthy. You're all tired. Thank you very much, and may the peace and blessings of God be upon you all.